Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. It is a brand new year. Welcome to 2025, and I welcome you all for coming along to listen to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. Now, quickly, what did you think of the intro? I used that intro on episode number 100, which was a special episode, and you know what? I kind of liked it, and I've obviously been a big fan. The old introduction music that I used to have was actually made by my brother Paul Smith, who does lots of music composing and that sort of stuff. So he put that together for me. I've used it for a couple of years, and I did some rejigging, something special for 100. And you know what? Kind of liked it. So thanks for all the work you did, Paul, for that intro. I really appreciated it. But we're going for a little change. So who knows how the introductions will continue from this point on. But you know what? I like this one, so I'm going with this one for something different, and that's a new intro for the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. Now, this is an episode of John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens, and if you're not sure about this episode, I just wanted to give you a bit of an idea, a bit of a rundown for the fresh new year for 2025. It's where I get to talk to superintendents and greenkeepers from right around Australia and give you an insight into the golf courses that these people care for, the men and women that look after golf courses in this country, and you can learn about them. You get to learn about the inside. It's a behind-the-scenes look, a peel back of the layers of what we don't often see. We get to talk about it and bring that out to you, so you get to hear about what goes on behind the scenes and what it takes to look after some of these amazing golf courses that we have right around the country. Big, small, everything in between, and that's the beauty of the country of Australia as well, and the beauty of the conversations with all the different people that we have on these episodes of Keeper of the Greens. So that's a bit of a rundown for what's involved and what you're going to hear over the coming episodes. And don't forget, of course, I've got lots of different segments of the podcast. John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens is one, and I'm not far away from bringing back the design brief, which is a conversation with golf course architects. I want to be able to share that insight with you as well. So I've got some of those coming out very soon, and as a tease that I'm going to be doing some work with the members of the Society of Australian Golf Course Architects. So that's one of the big things that I'll be bringing to you this year on the design brief. But also, I have a special one coming out in not too far away, so it's probably going to come out in February, which is with an international architect. So you'll have to stay tuned for that one. Walking the Fairways is going to be coming back as well. Lots of things happening and lots of content coming out for you. But we start off with a bang in 2025 with John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens, and I've got a great conversation coming up. And I just want to preface this one a little bit, because it's a new year. We're starting things a little bit differently. I've already got new intro music, so let's do something a little bit different as we go along. This one is going to be, it's a great conversation. Idris Evans is Superintendent of the Western Australian Golf Club over there in Perth in WA, right across the other side of the country. And we have a really good conversation coming up, which I know you're going to enjoy. But along the way, the conversation does get quite a bit personal with Idris, which I really do appreciate him revealing and talking about a lot of things. But you're going to hear the highs and lows of a very long and experienced greenkeeping career. Idris and I talk deep about a couple of things, and he does share quite a personal story with us in the workplace, and I just want to make quite clear that these are Idris's thoughts and opinions, and it's a conversation between him and I, obviously, that everyone gets to listen to, and he shares a story that I guess lots of people in different industries and we all encounter from time to time. And look, it does get difficult to talk about these particular subjects in terms of mental health and things like that, which is what you're going to hear about. It's easy to not talk about this type of stuff. Idris is very, very open about some of this, and I really appreciate him taking the time to share it, because it's something that I'm going to be talking more about this year as well, is mental health, particularly, obviously in our industry, in the greenkeeping space, but broadly in the golf industry. And I think we gloss over it too much. And where possible, I want to talk about it more so people can not shy away from it and not hide behind it and not suffer in silence, which is what happens a lot of the time with mental health. So that's something that you're going to hear of. You're going to hear lots of great stories, because Idris has an incredible career to talk about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, John Deere Golf is a proud partner of the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast, and they are the proud sponsors of Keeper of the Greens segment. That's why it's called John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens. You should know that John Deere is deeply committed to supporting women working in the golf and turf industries. The John Deere Women in Turf program helps create career pathways and build support networks to encourage greater female participation in Australia's prosperous greenkeeping sector. And that's something we're going to talk about this year a lot more. And I want you to make sure you're staying involved with and stay following the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast and John Deere, of course. Now, the program, the John Deere Women in Turf program, not only provides invaluable professional development opportunities, but creates a sense of community among female greenkeepers, which is important in a typically male-dominated industry. And there's no shying away from that. It is male-dominated. This year is the third year Cobram Barooga Golf Club is hosting the volunteer program at the WebEx Players Series Murray River. Returning to the site of the program's successful launch in 2023, the John Deere Golf Women in Turf program volunteers have the rare opportunity to work alongside other women as they support Club Superintendent Terry Vogel and his team to prepare the picturesque course for the WebEx Players Series Murray River event, which is fantastic. Now, I will give you a heads up. I'm actually going to be down there for the WebEx Players Series Murray River at Cobram Barooga, and I'm really excited about it later this month. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be recording a podcast down there. Very excited to be involved with this one, and I'm really, really pumped to do it. So look forward to being down there. And don't forget, this Women in Turf program is a fantastic initiative and something that myself and obviously John Deere Golf obviously want to promote and get the name out there, because it's great to see more females getting involved, and we want to support them getting involved more into the greenkeeping industry and becoming greenkeepers across all of the wonderful parts of our country. Without further ado, this is episode number 102. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's not often that I'm doing this over the microphone and on the phone, but this has got some distance involved. We're actually going thousands of kilometres across the country. I'm on the east side, and this guest is on the west side of the country, and I'll just do it. It's a very short intro. We'll just get stuck into it. Welcome to the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast to John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens, Idris Evans at the Western Australian Golf Club in Perth, WA.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Mate, thank you so much for being involved. You are kicking off 2025, mate. How does it feel, first cab off the rank for the new year?
Oh, well, pleased, I suppose. I'll try. It's nice to hear. I listen to your podcast all the time, and very interested to see what we have to come up with.
Oh, thank you, mate. I really appreciate that. It's always good to know where people are listening and who's listening. And I've got some rejigged things a little bit to start the new year off. So we're just going to start things off fresh with a little bit of a different flavour on some things. And mate, we're looking forward to getting into your career, because you've got a long and very extensive greenkeeping career over there in the West. And I'm looking forward to talking about that with you, mate. I think we're going to hear a lot of things, and certainly dive into the Western Australian Golf Club where you're working, mate, doing some fantastic stuff, mate. So let's get stuck into it, and we start off with Steve Super 7, mate, as always. You ready to go?
Yeah, far away.
All right, mate. Number one, sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise, definitely.
Sunrise. Okay, so now I've already got to ask the question, because anyone that I've spoken to in the West, nearly everyone says sunset. You've said sunrise. What's the difference for you over there?
I just love the mornings.
Yep.
The two reasons being, basically, there's no one around. The golf course is empty, so
yes.
You get to start your day fresh with a clean slate.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful time in the morning. Like, we don't have daylight saving over here, so basically the sun gets up, 4:30 in the morning. It's light. So get to work at 4:30, 4:45 most mornings, have a coffee.
Yes.
And then, start the day fresh.
Nice one.
It's always a bad day when you get to come to work with the sunrise and you get to go home at sunset.
You've been there far too long.
Yeah, far too long.
Something hasn't quite gone to plan, and you're still there.
Yeah.
No, mate,
that doesn't happen very often.
That's brilliant, mate. And one thing that I want to mention to the listeners out there, I've changed this a little bit, mate, so feel free to expand on your answers. I know I've gone quick fire in the past, but I think I'm open to listening to. It happens anyway, but just don't feel constrained. I'm open to listening to reasoning behind this, and that was since my own interview on the podcast where I just had to keep talking. I'm looking forward to hearing what what the whys behind these answers. So
All right.
we're expanding this a little bit, mate. A fantastic answer for number one. Number two, dogs or no dogs allowed on the golf course?
Dogs aren't allowed, but I had a dog that would come to work with me for pretty much 14 years.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. He came as a young Labrador, but wild and free, so he had to be sort of kept on a leash when he was out with me on the golf course.
Yep.
But he grew to become part of the golf course. The ladies loved him.
Yeah,
he actually knew what he could tell the time because he knew when Smoko he was around the golf course, and when 10 minutes before Smoko he'd start crying because he knew if he got back to the shed, the boys would feed him.
That's fantastic.
But, he was a beautiful animal, and I really miss him. But yeah. My 2IC brings his dog to work on a Saturday morning, and members get to like him.
Yeah, that's good.
But I'm a dogs man.
Yeah, very nice, mate. Good to hear. That's a great little story, that one. Fantastic, mate. Number three, stripes or no stripes on fairways. What happens for you? What's your personal taste here, mate? I'm interested.
We don't stripe our fairways up too often here, purely because of play commitments and time and that. I'm a very minimalistic sort of guy. We do stripe for tournaments and now and then for the members. The members love it. So given the time constraints, it takes about an extra hour to mow fairways.
Yes.
Striping it. Yes. But I'm more of a no stripe guy.
Good answer. I'll pick you there. I'll pick your brains a little bit. You mentioned that the members love it. Why do you think that is? It's something that I talk about. What do we know why? Are we breaking into the psychology here of golfers?
I think part of our job as superintendents and greenkeepers is we present a product visually. It's a visual product.
Yep.
There's nothing, nothing nicer than coming to a golf course or a park or whatever it may be that we all work in. And you come around the corner and you look at it and you go, wow, that looks great. And then it's the wow factor, I suppose. And members get a kick out of it. And, TV has a great part to play in what we do, but it also, it's a bit of a monster for us as well.
It's catch-22. It's you want to do it and you don't want to, but then like a lot of people say, and like you've mentioned, your own personal view being minimalist style is it lets the land speak and the golf course, the art speak of the golf courses without striping, because that takes away. It becomes too busy sometimes, and I think that's what's so good about not doing it on courses that have the other pluses to allow for it to speak, which is brilliant. But mate, thank you, good insight, mate. I wanted to hear it. Now we've got a new one. A new one to throw into the mix here.
There we go.
Yeah. And I don't know. This will be good. Okay. And this is from a couple of conversations that I have had on social media. So I've thought about this and I've added this one in. Right. Now, painted whole lips or not? Painted white whole lips or not?
Again, we do it.
Okay.
I do like it. So for tournaments, club championships, certain member days that, if we've got some members that are sponsoring a day here, sometimes I'll look after them and do that. I even sometimes get the request, can I pick the holes? And I said, sure you can. If you want to come in at 4:30 in the morning and come here with me, we'll change holes together.
That's interesting.
But, I like painted cups. We don't do it overly a lot here.
Yep.
But I do it enough that it's a special occasion and the members get a kick out of it.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Good answer, mate. Fantastic. Thank you. Number 5, an oldie but a goodie, your favourite grass variety, mate. What's your pick, a personal thing?
Oh, that's a good question. The new varieties going around now, I'd like to say bent grass, but because it keeps me up at night, I'm not going to pick it. Probably Santarana.
Santarana Cooch. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. That is an oldie but a goodie as well. Number 6, preferred style of golf course. Now, I have been thinking about this one and I've shaken it up for 2025. So forget everything that you've heard as a listener for the last year and a half or so, and yourself, mate. Now, I don't actually know how this is going to go, but I've thought about and I've gone with something very, very different to what I've done ever since I've started the pod. Here we go. New South Wales Golf Club on the cliffs around Sydney in the eastern suburbs there. Fantastic viewpoints and a wonderful golf course. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, played it.
Joondalup in WA, the resort-style course, some wild features, big course, and I'm sure you know that one, and I've since visited Perth, so that one's made a new hit for me. It's a different style as well. Or Royal Adelaide, and I've gone back to an old favourite of mine here with Royal Adelaide, that linksy style, natural, beautiful textures and contrasting colours there in Adelaide on the sand belt there around the western parts and the northwestern parts of Adelaide City, mate. What are your thoughts out of those three? What's your preferred style?
If it was just New South Wales and Joondalup, New South Wales would win every day, but I'd have to go with Royal Adelaide. I love links golf courses, but Royal Adelaide, you're right, has the blend of both, I suppose. It's a dune links style golf course, very simplistic golf course. I'm not a massive fan of tree-lined golf courses.
Yep.
I like the open links, things that naturally evolve. And It looks like it's been there forever.
Yes. Very good, mate. Royal Adelaide, what a great pick out of that. And I tried to steer away. I'm going to justify my own thoughts here. I tried to steer away from Melbourne this time because lots of people, including myself, went to Melbourne nearly all the time, and I wanted to try and open up some different sorts there. So I think I've got a bit of a mix there. It'll be interesting to see which way things go. So, thank you, mate. Interesting. Number 7, the final one. And this is a bit of a shake-up as well because I thought the other one, when I got asked the question, was a bit too big and a little bit hard to answer on a short time frame, which I didn't. Yep. So, I'm curious to opening up some answers and extensive sort of reasoning behind it for yourself. So let's go. Number 7, which golf course in Australia would you like to visit tomorrow and why? Just anyone that you'd like to see. It might be a personal reason, thinking back to something when you were younger, or it might be something you've thought about wanting to go and see because you've never been there. Is there anything that you think of, mate, that you just want to go and, I'd like to go there?
Kingswood Peninsula really interests me. Again, very rugged, natural style golf course, and I've heard so much about it.
PK? Peninsula
Definitely
Kingswood?
a golf course I'd like to see, yeah.
Yep, in Melbourne, yes.
Yep.
That was my last interview for 2024, mate, with Director of Courses Glenn Stewart. It's I'm a big fan, and I think if you've not seen it, mate,
It looks like a beautiful piece of land, and it's just what Mike Cocking's done there is carved a unique golf course out of pretty much nothing.
Oh, look, it's the renovation of what the old course was, and I don't know, but the new version is just staggering. It's you sit there and wonder, and it's just magnificent. So, mate, I'm glad you picked that one because it's a personal favourite of mine. There you go. Idris, Steve Super 7, thank you so much. Some interesting answers, and we're starting fresh for 2025. Now, let's hear a little bit about you and about your career, mate. So, and I'm going to fire this one straight at you. I would like you to tell us how long you've been working at the Western Australian Golf Club.
I've been at the club full-time for 38 years.
I just had to put the hammer down for everyone. 38 years.
I did 2 summers as a casual. I did the first summer as a casual, and then when I came back, I did another summer and then got offered full-time work, and I took it up. And,
that is mind-blowing.
Been here ever since.
That is absolutely staggering. So one of the most interesting things and the reasons behind I really wanted to get you on sooner rather than later, mate, is because of that. And I think some of the things that we'll go through will be the things that you've seen, the things that have changed, not only at Western Australian Golf Club, but a little bit more broadly in the industry, mate. So take us back to that beginning. How did you get into the Western Australian Golf Club? And you said that was your full-time work and you've done a little bit of casual stuff there, but tell us what got you into greenkeeping and then ultimately at the WA Golf Club.
It was here by accident, really. I originally, because I lived in Darwin at the time when I was basically... So when I left school at year 11, I got a job to save money up, and cricket was my passion, so I wanted to become a cricketer.
Okay.
I played cricket. So I got offered a sort of a position down here at a club called Mount Lawley Cricket Club, first grade club. Came down to Perth, worked the summer, went back home to Darwin where I lived because the different seasons, I pretty much played cricket all year round. Came back the next summer and one of my mates said, they're looking for some casuals at the WA Golf Club. I said, back then we were known as the Mount Yokine. So I rocked up and Trevor Strawn was the superintendent at the time. And I did a summer of working on the golf course and absolutely loved it. Being mad about my cricket, this was a great job. You started work early in the morning, you're home about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You rested up and went to cricket training for 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon.
Ah, yeah, right. That's interesting.
Really, as most things do in life, they're accidents, I suppose. You're not, looking to pursue something.
Yep.
But I just loved it and fell in love with it. And so I came back the next summer because Trevor said, come back next summer and I'll put you on again. And then he offered me full-time work, and I've been here ever since.
That's unreal.
I actually asked him for an apprenticeship, but he'd had a bad experience with an apprentice previously. He said, "I'm not putting another bloody apprentice on." So I had to do night school to do it on my own bat. So
wow.
It was 4 years of night school. So, winter wasn't so bad. Knocking off work and going sit in at the class and go site visit at other golf courses, bowling greens, and parks. But during summer, it was pretty brutal. 2 nights a week, going to TAFE and learning my greenkeeping trade.
Yeah, wow. That's so you put yourself through that. You paid for that through your own.
Yeah, that's paid for it on my own bat. So these days now, I always say to my staff, if you want to go and do a class or anything, and you can prove to me that it benefits me and the club, we'll pay for it. So
yep.
But yeah, it sort of fell into it. So cricket was my passion, and incidentally, after about I think 5 or 6 years of working here, I was offered, because I'm a British citizen. Well, I was born in Wales. We emigrated when I was 2.
Oh, wow.
But I had a British passport, so I was offered a contract to go and play county seconds for Glamorgan.
Wow.
And how it turned out, so I went to the club and thought I'll be able to get leave without pay over winter, and the club said no. Right. You're required. So it was a crossroads, I suppose. Stay here and keep working on the golf course, or quit and go and play cricket. As you can imagine, I chose the golf course.
And the rest is history, essentially. Wow, there you go. What age were you, mate, when you got that first full-time gig?
19.
Okay. So were you
18 or 19, yeah.
You travelled down to Perth from Darwin, you moved away on your own?
Yeah, so basically the cricket club helped me out with accommodation, and I lived probably about an hour's drive from Perth, literally, when I first came down here. They found me better accommodation just around the corner from the golf course. So, I could ride a push bike to work to save money, didn't have to worry about a car or fuel and things like that.
Yep.
So,
wow.
Cricket was a big part of my life, and so is the golf course, obviously.
There you go. That's unreal. And what year, do you remember what year you got your first full-time gig?
Oh, good question. 38 years ago.
What a great answer.
Over 38 years ago. I just, members, I always say to my members, I said, I'm either going to die here or I'll get incarcerated here.
Yeah.
One of the two, whichever comes first.
Oh, that's sensational. That is such a long time. I'm only 44 years old. I say only because I feel old, but lots of people tell me I'm still young. Yeah. And so you've been working there for nearly as long as I've been alive, which is incredible.
Well, I think I've worked here longer than 3 of my staff have been. They weren't even born when I first started. So
yeah, wow, that's unbelievable, man. Fantastic. So did you still played cricket like you said? At the time you had time to train and do all that sort of stuff after work?
Yeah, well, as a greenkeeper, basically I was a groundsman, no great responsibilities on me. You work Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, but it was only a 3 or 4 hour shift. So the job afforded me the luxury of training when I wanted to train. Weekend work, very rarely you worked all weekend, so there was no commitment to work. So cricket started in the afternoon. So played cricket up to the age of about 33, I think, when my body sort of said. But even when I was 2 IC, the job basically allowed me the freedom to play cricket. It wasn't until I became the superintendent that time was a bit more, I gave more time to work than I did cricket.
Yeah.
And I pursued a cricket. My goal was to pursue a cricket career, to play first class cricket, Test cricket, as most kids do. And I soon, after a while, the penny drops. But I love playing cricket. I played 17 years of first grade cricket with Mount Lawley.
Wow.
We won some premierships and things like that, so great memories.
Fantastic, man. That's unreal. And it worked hand in hand, like you said. It was the career path and that passion for the sport of cricket, even though it was away from cricket. I'm curious then, had you ever considered at any point, you mentioned that you love the golf side of the turf maintenance side, and the WA club were great for you and that you were able to get the job in there and get the work. Had you ever considered doing cricket fields and cricket pitch and greenkeeping?
No, not really, because golf just so much variety in golf. There's something different every day. You learn so much, and you do on all other facilities, I'd imagine. I'm only speaking from what I think I know.
Yeah, sure.
It just didn't interest me rolling up and down on a cricket wicket for 3 or 4 hours every day. and things like that. But golf, being on a golf course and being outside, I suppose, the outdoor environment, that's why most of us choose it in the first place.
Yep.
But golf gives you that much variety. Every day is different, and every day was different. So
Yeah.
it was never the boring, mundane routine of the same old thing.
Yep. No, that's I was just curious because I wasn't sure whether that had ever tempted you or anything like that. Being such a lover of cricket.
I always thought I'd retire from work if it ever got too much for me and going, sort of downsize into a cricket curating role.
Yep.
The cricket club, my cricket club, did offer me work there one time. They said, "Why don't you do it?" And I said, I still had a passion, and I still have. I've got a great passion for the golf course and things I want to achieve. There's such a great sense of achievement when you plan a project and see it through.
Yep.
And the members enjoy it. I get a kick out of that. At the end of the day, we're in a service industry.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a very good way of putting it. I think sometimes we forget that too. So, and we'll come to detailing some of those things because I'm looking forward to hearing some of that. So, okay, so you do your time, as it were, and you become a qualified greenkeeper over the next few years, working in that early part of WA Golf Club. How did your career then step? I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone who's been at the one club the whole time. So take us through the steps in your career path within the West Australian Golf Club.
So obviously started as a groundsman and pretty much worked my way up. Part of it's luck. I owe a great deal of my career to luck and it being at the right place at the right time. So I was a groundsman for probably 8 or 9 years. Trevor Strawn had moved on to go and build the vines.
Okay.
Trevor's a great mate of mine. Trevor's a member of the club here as well. So
yeah, right.
We speak quite rarely. He's influenced my career greatly. So I think it was probably about 8 or 9 years before I sort of moved up into a foreman role when we, with a small crew. Back then we only had a crew of 6 or 7 staff.
Okay.
And then basically because I was here for so long, I got bypassed for the assistant's role on one occasion, which didn't bother me too much. And then eventually became the assistant and I was probably the assistant for about 8 or 9 years.
Yep.
And then got offered the job.
And when can you remember what year that was, what era we're talking that you got the superintendent's role?
Been the superintendent for 25 years now. So the only reason I know is my daughter's 25 and I remember vividly my wife was booked in for cesarean and I think I basically went to the hospital. My daughter was born and I was back at work at 11 o'clock.
Oh, wow. The life of a superintendent, a new one.
Yeah. And I've thrown a lot of time into my career and there's probably hundreds of superintendents and people who work on the grounds of, parks, ovals. You do give up a lot, especially during summer. There's a lot of unforeseen hours that you put in, hand watering greens, checking things, keeping things alive and things like that. So, got the job as I was caretaker superintendent for a while, for about 4 months, and I thought this is a great job. As most 2ICs, I reckon if you spoke honestly to most 2ICs, they reckon it's an easy job being a superintendent.
And of course.
I actually thought it was for the first 3-4 months that I was the caretaker, but it wasn't until the club officially said, "You're it, You're the superintendent of the golf club now." I don't think I slept properly for 4 months. All of a sudden, when you're the caretaker, decisions don't matter so much. But all of a sudden, when the penny drops and the buck stops with you, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right way to go? So you question everything. And that's something Trevor taught me. He said, a good thing he said is when you make a decision, think about it 2 or 3 times before you actually make the decision, rather than making an emotional decision.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And that's one thing probably the one bit of advice I live by is when you make a decision, don't make an emotional decision.
Very hard. It's very true. Facts. Very true. And very hard to do sometimes, but very, very measured response to anything that confronts you. And you've got to do.
Especially when you've got 1,200 members. So when you make a decision, you're never going to please all of them, as I've found out. But, sometimes if you backflip on a decision, and, I've backflipped on many a decision sometimes, and the way we've gone with the golf course. But they're quick to tell you, boys, see, I told you I was
right. I love the final word from a member or a board member. And that's I do often talk about that personally as well when I talk to people on the podcast or just in conversation. Is just what you said, and you articulated it very well, which is it's the responsibility once the decision has been made officially, and like you said, for yourself, it was that you were caretaker for a number of months. When it's official and you walk in, whether that's your first day on the job or whatever it is through your career, when you become that superintendent and that weight of responsibility is there ever present on your shoulder, just saying, hey, was that the right decision? Was that the right decision? And you kind of hear it around in different parts of the world as you do your job. And you're like, and you're second-guessing things and you're questioning stuff sometimes, depending on what you're talking about. It really does make a difference.
I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes and stuff like that. You have to eat a lot of humble pies, I think, is in my role. Because sometimes decisions are not forced upon you, but they take a different tack to the way you might want to see them go.
Sure.
And, sometimes things don't work out. So you've got to be fairly humble in this position, I think.
And 100% right. There's so many different voices, so many people involved, lots of, and you use that word emotion because anyone who works on a golf course that's committed to their job has an emotional attachment to the golf course. And I find, and you might disagree with, you might agree with me, I find that anyone who pays a membership has an emotional attachment to a golf course.
Yeah, they do. Well, they've got a voice, haven't they?
That's it.
It's amazing. It's amazing in our job, though. One of my favourite sayings is, "I don't need to be smart. Everyone knows more than me." They're quick to come up and tell you. And I suppose, you wouldn't tell a dentist how to do his job, an accountant, a plumber, a builder. But I tell you what, there's a few greenkeepers at a golf course that tell you how to do your job.
Yeah. I liken it a bit to, and this isn't, and I will say this out loud so everyone can hear. This isn't bagging out members, and this isn't bagging out people.
No,
this is the way. This is the way that the industry is, and this is the things that we have to deal with on course, and this is what happens inside clubs. And I think because a lot of people have a home lawn, they have played a lot of golf in their hobby of golf. They've seen lots of things, or they've seen lots of time go by in different ways people do things. They often think that sometimes that's helpful to let that on, and sometimes they say it in a different way that they probably should. There's emotion gets ahead of them as well, and I still do it personally. I have emotional attachments to some of my favourite golf courses around that I grew up playing, and I think to myself, oh, geez, really? Did the club go that way? What was behind that? And I kind of wonder and ask the question, and I've probably learnt through my time that you can't just go out and say, hey, you shouldn't have done that, because you don't know the reasoning behind or the circumstances behind how that decision came to be passed. And it's not usually one single person. It's a club, and there's lots of different forces involved. And that's my take on it. And it's a challenging environment for everyone involved.
Yeah, and the thing is, golf memberships, they all play different golf courses.
Yeah.
And they come back sometimes and they say, so-and-so golf course is fantastic. Why isn't ours like that? Or, they're having trouble. And I always say to them, I said, you don't know the true story of what's going on at a golf course. You don't know their staff numbers, their budget, their soil types. There's a myriad of factors that affect sometimes the standard and the quality of a golf course. Mm-hmm. And, and the same happens with cricket too, I suppose, because being a cricketer, you play different. You have a home ground that you play on every second Saturday, but you go and play at another cricket ground and the wicket's green, or it's not very flat, or you don't know the circumstances, what's led to that. But too often, I think sometimes people jump to conclusions and they think they know that, and there's a lot of facts that go into it.
Yeah, and a lot more. Pardon me, a lot more than even we sometimes realise. But we probably have a bit more of an understanding because we're often part of those inner decision-making processes. Whether we're on the right side or the wrong side of them is part of our daily job as a superintendent. But at the same time, you have an influence sometimes in how that goes. That's part of your role, is to try and get the most.
And that's where the emotional attachment. Whilst I'll have an emotional attachment to the golf course, so do the members.
Yeah,
and it means they care. It means I care, and it means they care. And I applaud their passion. Sometimes it's just a little ill-directed. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't agree more. So, mate, that puts you. I'm going backwards here. 1999. Is that right? When you got the gig as superintendent 25 years ago?
Right. Yep, sounds about right.
2000, 1999, thereabouts. So, You've seen so much. So do you remember much of that early time with taking the reins officially with the team around you?
Yeah.
Did you have to, what was the team like that you had to step into the shoes of to lead? What was that like?
I was lucky because I worked with the guys, for a fair while. So basically, one of the guys, Mark Bunt's my assistant now, was basically a high credentialed apprentice. So I offered him the 2IC's position, and he stepped into the role really well. And then I had a couple of mates, they were mates, they were friends as well as basically workmates. Stepped into it was about September when I officially got the job. Got thrown in the deep end. We were building a new maintenance facility. So
Wow.
One of the members, the president at the time, was project managing it. So I had to sort of grab that by the horns and sort of get that sort of underway and get that going, which was good because we had as most old golf courses back then did, just had a tin shed, was not adequate, not safe. So we built a new maintenance facility down the bottom of the golf course. So I got thrust into that. So
that's a cool gig to get early on.
Yeah, I basically got in 2000 we put a new irrigation system in the ground as well. So
wow.
That was a massive project. There was a new irrigation system, and we basically constructed 4 golf holes at the same time. So work commenced on that in March, and we didn't finish till about the 20th of December.
Yeah,
and it was just non-stop building and jigging the golf course.
That's a lot of that. They're 2 enormous projects that most people might not do in their life or their career lifetimes that you've done first up.
Yeah. I was lucky enough because Trevor, being a member of the club, basically helped project manage it. And the president at the time, Arthur Button, lovely man, basically stepped me through everything and helped me through it. And because I remember standing where the lake, we built a lake outside the clubhouse. And I think we had 3 different contractors on site at the same time. We had scrapers and excavators going and everything like that.
Wow.
And I remember standing there thinking, how the hell am I going to get through this?
That's a lot of work, mate. That's a busy time in your career.
Yeah, it was literally basically putting one fire out after another. But, contractors didn't want to, crossing over work schedules and things like that. But it sort of flowed. Once we got into it, the project just flowed, and it sort of, it was a great time, and it was a very busy time. But yeah, I think I had a staff of about 6 or 7 back then when I first took over, and we're a staff of 10 now. So
yeah, right. And we'll talk about how that you've raised the bar as time's gone on, and that comes with increasing your crew, obviously, and the club getting better and better and improving along the way. I look at hear you talk about those 2 projects, and your early time as a superintendent, getting the team. That's talk about hours. You'd have been punching out some long days, mate.
That was pretty much 10 to 12 hour days, 6 days a week, 6.5 days a week for 8-9 months.
Wow, what an achievement at the end of that period of building those 2 projects and ticking them off, mate. Hanging your hat on those projects. That would have been a pretty proud moment, a very proud moment early in your career.
Oh, it was, yeah. We've got Graham Marsh involved because basically prior to that, any work that went on the golf course was done through sort of Trevor helped out, and it was sort of everything was in-house. There was no architect, I suppose.
Okay.
Well, whilst Trevor had some great experience because he built the vines and worked closely with Graham, Trevor was the one that sort of instigated, look, if we're going to do this, we need to get a professional in. So we engaged Graham Marsh to oversee the work and do the redesign and design the lake.
Yep.
So it involved basically 2 golf holes, our first and 9th wrapping around the lake, and then the second hole we moved the green site and bunkers, and our 12th hole we re-sited that, and they were both born about safety issues because we had a lot of housing. We still do. We have a lot of housing around the golf course, so safety is a huge factor.
Yeah, okay.
And we're going through it now. It's got worse, obviously, with golf balls flying further.
Yep, yeah. That's something that we don't take into account very often, I don't think, is it's not just that a lot more courses have got houses built along their boundaries, but certainly golf balls go so much further sideways as much as they go further off of the distance.
Yeah, we're a short golf course. We're only 5,500 metres, so I think we're in the top 100. I think we're the shortest golf course in the top 100.
Wow, that is right. I did not expect that. I haven't done a lot of looking. I don't know a lot of this is a learning experience for me as much as everyone listening. I don't know a lot of WA golf, so that's an interesting thing as well, mate. But you're holding your head really high in that it's regarded in the top 100. There you go. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, we get a kick out of that when it comes in. I don't subscribe to it too often.
Sure,
but it's nice to to get the acknowledgement that the club gets, being in the top 100. I think 49 is as high as we've got. Well, I think we're 55 at the moment. But I'm realistic. I always say to the board at the time, I said, don't get carried away with this, because I said every time a new golf course gets built, we get shunted down 2 or 3 places. And a lot of golf courses have gone restoration works over the years, which pushes them up. And I think there's a huge, within the golf industry now, I think there's a huge push to basically modernise golf courses. And you see it all the time. Kings Peninsula did it. Victoria have done it. Huntingdale are doing it at the moment. Mount Lawley just recently did it. Royal Perth over here are doing it. So
you're quite right. I think it's very much a boon in the industry of renovating and working golf courses, Commonwealth, and you could rack off all the ones down in the Sandbelt. Everyone's gone through something. There's plenty and the new ones are the 7 miles of the world and that sort of stuff that come along every now and then. Not so much in Australia, but they do from time to time.
They slot straight into the top 50, don't they?
Yeah, well, straight to the that's right, they do when they get renovated. And the new builds go straight into the top 10 with Cape Wickham and Ocean Dunes and Barn Bugles, and I mean it's they and 7 Mile. I can speak from my experience having seen it. I predict it will be in the top 5. But they're very careful in their selection of where they build and very measured how they go about it, and that bumps everyone else who's been existing for 100 odd years way down, and because they're that old.
We're a members course here. I mean, we're short by tournament standards. We hold the WA Open every 5 years here, which is good fun to have.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, no, look, we get a kick out of it. It's a great challenge for the team. And they get to do something different for a week or two, so it's good.
That's mate, that's fantastic. That's sensational. So that's essentially your career path within the West Australian Golf Club, mate, getting into superintendent and 25 years ago, and here you are in that time. So, mate, congratulations on all that, because that's a great career journey, and great to hear how you've done it internally within the one club. And there's a passion that you've got within, and there's a sense of loyalty as well, I guess, to having been at one club for so long.
The club's been really good to me. In saying that, I give them, I think, what they want.
Yeah, sure.
I'm unique in the sense that I'm a fee-paying member of the club as well. So I know I say this to other superintendents. They look at me strangely, go, "What the hell? Are you kidding? You pay to be a member there?"
Yep.
It was born about because I loved sport, and I thought I played a little bit of golf. So when I was a groundsman, I said, "You're allowed to play," and you're allowed to play on a Thursday afternoon back then.
Okay.
So I'd sneak out and play 9 holes and tear off the cricket training. And the captain of the club at the time, who I knew reasonably well through TAFE, he said, "Why don't you join?" And I said, "I'm not allowed. It's a taboo," which it was back then. It was just unheard of. And he said, "No, I'll take care of it." And lo and behold, I got in as a junior member, as a 20-year-old.
Right.
I paid my fees, and I pay my fees ever since, which is good, because there are times, I liken it to snake venom. Being bitten by a snake, because for the first 6 months I never went in the clubhouse.
Yep.
Because you walked in the clubhouse and someone would say, "What are you doing about this? What are you doing about that?" So I divorced myself from it. But I soon learned that I was a member and I had a right to go in there. And it's like I became immune to some of the comments. And sometimes members will say things that they're not saying it at you, but they want you to hear it.
Yes. The backhanded ones under the breath that are loud enough so the whole clubhouse can hear it.
And then, look, in saying that, one of my superintendents that I worked under, Ross Gray, I think I helped his career immensely, because sometimes you cut a lot of things off before they got to the committees, or became a letter back then. It's an email now, and I'd say, "Look, the boys at the bar were complaining about this bunker or that." We'd go clean it up, and then a letter would get written, and they'd say, "Well, it's been done." So
jump the gun.
I'm a fee-paying member. So every now and then, and it's very rare, I say to them, "Which hat do you want me to wear?" And they go, "Why?" I said, "One of them, you're not going to like the response one of them is going to give you."
Yeah, that's a fair point, and that puts you in an interesting. Look, there's value to paying a membership, and whether everyone's going to have a view on that for course staff, or certainly superintendents as well. But I think by doing,
it's not honouring. That's the thing, I suppose. I don't get honouring.
Yeah, and I think that gives a bit of value to that, in that the other members see you in a sense, and I'm only guessing here, that you're paying your way to do so. It's not, so it's not being given to you by them. You're one of them in a sense. So I'm assuming there must be a different point of view from there, how they view you and your role, and being a member of the club. Like you said, they don't. I can't imagine that they would have an easy way to or think about differently their comments towards you sometimes.
Yeah, they do sometimes. I mean, it's part of our job as superintendent and is communication. We have to relay what we're doing, how we're doing it. And I think being a fee-paying member and playing golf twice a week, you grow relationships very quickly with club captains and presidents, because you soon learn who the people to talk to are. So sometimes when you're having a problem with something, you pull the president aside and say, talk to him and say, look, we're having some issues with this. And they know why then. So at a board level or a committee level, sometimes things are explained. And you cut things off at the pass sometimes before they become, the molehill became a mountain, I suppose.
Yep. No, mate, that's interesting, and it's a different way of doing it, and there's plenty of different ways that clubs and people do things. So that I think that's an interesting take, and I kind of like it in a way. So there you go.
I mean, and that's it's allowed me to grow as a person, but also get some great relations. I met with my wife here. I've been married for 32 years, so my wife, we met on the chipping green. It was basically, I think I was 21 and she was 18 back then.
That's sensational.
Since my son's a member of the golf club, my daughter hates golf, so she's tried it. But she understands the role, and so my son's a member here, and he loves playing golf, and so now and then we chew the fat over the condition of the golf course and things like that. But yeah, the job's I've been very lucky with the job. I've got to travel and see some great places around the world. But I've met my wife, who we've got two lovely children or adult children now. So yeah, it's given me a lot.
Another touch to your long-term relationship with the club, and that's fantastic, right? It's so good to hear. What a great story with the WA Golf Club. There can't be anyone out there in Australia that's got a similar career path or relationship with the club that you've got. I mean, you not only have you done your whole career there effectively, but you met your wife there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
A lot of superintendents play golf at their home club, I said, but I don't think many of them pay fees, and I don't get a discount. Yeah. In actual fact, my rights are less as a member because I'm not allowed to run for a board position. Yeah, I'm not allowed to nominate anyone for committee or second them for committee.
Yep.
I've seen how the board are treated sometimes. I think I get treated poorly. Board members, I think that's a thankless job.
That's okay.
Some of them. In saying that, I've had some captains and vice captains that have deserved everything they've been given by the membership, but very few and far between. I did, I'll be honest here. I had an incident with a captain and a vice captain going back probably 15, 16 years ago now, and they put me through the ringer, emotionally, and basically it cost me a lot in my career. Wow. Depression. They basically brought on a really bad case of depression, and I think it's it's more openly spoken about now. I don't think people realise what we go through sometimes, and I stand by this comment, and I will all the time. The job is not a job; it's who we are. Most superintendents, the job defines us. I don't know. I'm going to have to walk away from the job one day. I know I will. I hope I get a chance to walk away from it rather than being shoved out the door. We're like AFL football coaches. You're going to get sacked one day.
Yeah.
But I hope I get to walk away from the job. But how I cope with that, it might be...
Yeah. Mate, that's quite profound what you just said before about not only that experience. And I think there are a lot of people out there in our industry that go through very difficult times in their role. And I'm sure, we know that there are plenty of people that go through depression, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, and I'll talk about it a long time into the future because it's something that we need to continue to do better for as an industry. And and the more we talk about those situations, and the more that that we can be prepared and be better and manage and deal with those situations better. And I think it's terrible. mate, I just sat back in my seat there when you were saying that, because that upsets me to hear that, but it's a part of life, and it happens in lots of industries, but it certainly does happen in ours. And
I went through a tough time. The difference, I suppose, for me was the support network. Obviously, my wife was a great supporter, but a lot of members as well. Members could clearly see I was being, part of it, was unjust, but some of it was warranted, I suppose. I'll put my hand up there. But the members could see what was going on, and they reacted quite viciously at one of the next time they were up for the election.
Yeah, there you go. And
which vindicated me. I felt greatly satisfied. And it's harsh to say this, but they got their just desserts.
Yeah. No, and that's it has a toll, and it's always there even afterwards. It's still there. It's a scar.
Yeah, and I think back then I had a good manager in Brian Close. But in saying that, now my manager I have now, Damien Todorovic, I can't speak highly enough of him. And I think the relationship between managers and superintendents is probably one of the most critical roles. It's something I foster.
Yep.
You're not always going to get on with them, but having a good manager, this guy's just, I can't speak highly enough of the manager over at the moment. He supports me. We talk regularly. He's just a genuine person. And he supports me in every decision I make.
That's very good to hear, because it's a fair chunk of your life is your work. I mean, and like you said before, it does define a lot of us as greenkeepers, a lot of us as superintendents when we get to those positions. We've been, by the time you become a superintendent and then you've been one for a little while, that's essentially, like you said, that's who you are. That defines who you are and what you do, and everyone around you knows that, whether they're in golf or an outside work or whatever. They know that that's who you are and what you do, and that you'll never not be that person. Doesn't matter where you end up, you still find within yourself, and I can speak for that 100%. Doesn't matter what I've done afterwards,
you've been there, you've done that.
Yeah, and I still see myself as a greenkeeper and a former superintendent, and that's how I'll always view it. And because of that passion, because of that emotion, and how much you put into the role.
I don't think it's a label, I suppose.
Yeah, and
good or bad, who knows?
Yeah, and it's so when you go through a difficult time, it carries a lot more weight. It's not something that you are just doing for a year as a passing job. It's you're in it. You are everything. You're boots deep and then some. And I can use all sorts of expletives, but you're it, and you are all in, all of it. There's nothing left behind, and I think that's where some, and I know that I've got a lot of golfers that listen and people that are on committees and boards. I think sometimes people that pass through boards don't understand or appreciate it. And I think there's also some that don't think very well before they do speak, that are on boards, that have been long-term members, that don't realise that it is literally all in. Like you articulated at the very beginning of this conversation, or early in the conversation, mate, about when your firstborn, when your wife gave birth to your firstborn, you were there in the hospital and then you were back at work. I mean, there's not many places or careers or anything that would see that happen, and your family will be, well, that's the gig. That's part of the role. That's what happens. So
my kids growing up, basically, in summer, they knew when it was a 36-degree day, Dad had to take off at lunchtime or 1 o'clock in the afternoon and go and check the greens and hand water and things like that. So my wife always likened me to, sort of get a cardboard cutout so the kids remember what I look like. Because I go to work before they got up to go to school.
Yep.
And there were days where I'd come home they would already come home. So, some days I was home to pick them up from school. But there was a lot of occasions where you don't get to pick them up from school as well, and you come home and you're tired. So you've done a 10 or 12-hour day, and it's hard to get going again sometimes.
And you miss things, and there's lots of people in management roles that miss things with their family. And I think because we're often outside and not in inside an office, or not inside where there's lots of other people that can see us regularly and touch base with us and do that, because we're often out there in our small teams or in our bigger teams, but we're out there busy, and you don't get to talk to everyone regularly. It's not it's not a communal thing around the water cooler and in the morning, or a smoke break with the bigger team. So I think there's a lot of parts there that we miss in our career, those touch points for the broader group in a facility, in a workplace, and the membership as well. So they see you, but they don't see you, and then it's all of those things.
It's one of the things I believe in greatly is family comes first now. So I say to my staff, if there's something you need to take some time off, whether your child's sick, go and look at the school assembly or an award ceremony. I said, don't hesitate, just let me know, and I'll let them go. I think it's very important because they give up a fair bit of their time, and I'm lucky because I've got a staff of 10. I have. There's 5 of us that have got over 100, and I think it's about 135 years experience working at the golf course. So my assistant, who's been here for 31 years, my irrigation tech's been here for 27 years.
Wow.
And then I have 2 foremen. One's been here for 25 and one's been here for 12.
Wow, mate! I've got to tell you, that is an incredible wrap for the club and for for you guys, the staff. That's unreal.
I just don't know whether it's luck or
well,
or I try to breed an environment of work. You're here for a long time, so trying to make it fun. But when I was a 2IC, I struggled with the management side of it because when you're a 2IC, you're also their friend. So you're their boss and their friend, and I grappled with it, and I learned some tough lessons. But at the end of the day, when I'm the superintendent, I always say to them, "I'm still your mate, but at the end of the day, I'm your boss."
Yeah, yeah.
So there's times when I've had to divorce myself from some of the activities. My guys are fairly social. They catch up with each other on the weekends. But I've got a great crew, and even the young guys I've got here now at the moment have been here for a couple of years, and we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of banter, but they get on well together.
Keeps it fresh, keeps it interesting, keeps it enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because
it does.
There's plenty of times, like you've said, through summer, and it's always the hardest time of the year. There's plenty of times when it's a proper grind and it's physically demanding as much as mentally demanding, and there's tough times out there where everyone's going to be exhausted, and then you want to, but you still want everyone to be comfortable with each other and enjoy that time with each other because it's a working group and it's all close quarters, so. Everyone's got to get along and still be happy within themselves as much as within the team. And I think that's...
Just dealing with some of the egos sometimes is fun.
Fun's probably not a word I'd use, but it happens. It happens.
Tongue in cheek, that one, don't worry.
It happens. Mate, that reflection on thinking about, you talked about your staff that have been there for those years, those particular individuals, and at the club, and lots of different people move within clubs, different roles within the management structure of the clubs and boards and so on. But that still says a lot about the values of a club, I imagine. And obviously it says a great deal about yourself. Obviously, that's part of your leadership within the group on course. But it has to work for the broader part of the club too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky that the board supported me in some of the decisions I've made with the way we look after staff. We have a very big incentive program here where basically they're rewarded for years of service, time that they don't take off on sick days and things like that. It's very hard. I mean, that's the poor thing about our industry is the wage. And, we're all talking about recruiting staff, but you put a staff member on, you pay them minimum wage sometimes, you put them on a $150,000 piece of equipment and you expect them to behave themselves and, carry on and look after this piece of equipment. It's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky to basically put things in place where they get rewarded apart from their pay.
So what you're saying is that we can think outside the box a little bit more within our own clubs and clubs.
I've had to do it just out of necessity because I've always wanted to reward. Whilst I'm proud of my achievement, I'm also proud of the achievement my other staff have made in committing to the club for 27, 30 years and so on and so forth. And that's I get a kick out of that. It's an achievement
for sure.
The downside of having a staff like this, it's when you get young, up and coming apprentices. And I've had an instance to an apprentice. They clearly see there's no chance for advancement.
Yep.
He went to another club and he's come back to me now. Taking him under his wing, but again. I think sometimes you've got to do your time.
Yeah.
And I think young guys are a little more want things to happen instantly now. It took me 10 to 12 years before I became a 2IC.
Yep.
So
And sometimes you've got to go away to come back.
yeah, and it's harder in Perth because there's not as many golf courses, so the chance to get your foot in the door at other golf courses is difficult. It tends to happen like a bit of a merry-go-round here. If someone moves on, generally in the past, someone would move from another golf course and so on and so forth. So there'd be a bit of a merry-go-round effect. But lately, there's a lot of superintendents that haven't got long careers at the club. And when they have left, the 2ICs have stepped up. So it's very hard sort of advancement.
Yeah, okay. That's I suppose, well, maybe it is localised to Perth in a sense. I found the Blue Mountains region like that. That's why I couldn't go anywhere when I lost my job at Katoomba, because lots of supers had all been there for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't...
And it's like, that's what it's like in Perth. There's a lot of seasoned campaigners around that have been here for quite a while now, and they're all in stable jobs. They're all doing great jobs.
Yep.
Things like that. So there's no advancement. So it gets hard for some. I can see our young guys get a bit downtrodden or downhearted, and they move into other careers.
Yeah, that's fair. But like anything, you sometimes you got to look for it. It might not be where you think it is, and sometimes those next steps, as I've interviewed a number of people on this podcast, and they've gone away to come back, or they've gone away and gone, my God, it's just the best decision I made, because I ended up going up and up and up into other areas that I never even dreamed of, and now look where I am.
Yeah.
So it's I can understand that, mate. I just want to go back a little bit, if you don't mind, just to where you were talking about the changes and the way that you guys look after the clubs and your staff, I should say, that you look after your staff and the things that you've done. Do you see those changes? And you said family first, and you often talk about that with your staff as well. Yeah. Do you see some of the changes in our industry? And mate, I have not. I'm just letting you know, I've gone nowhere near what I had in mind for this podcast discussion. So this is evolving very, very interestingly. Do you see some of the changes with people like yourself now that are managing teams and leading golf courses, that it's through some of the things that you didn't see, that you don't want that side of stuff to happen to some of your staff? You know, that they might not have seen with their young families and that. You want to make sure that they get the opportunities to do that with work. Is that some of the reasons why we've seen the industry change? Because I know that for a long time it was, these are the hours, this is what you do, and it's, this is our industry and this is a job. Suck it up, princess.
Yeah, and I got brought up that way. My dad, I think I've taken 4 days off in 25 years as a superintendent. A sick day. You come to work if you're not feeling great. And it's not a reflection on today's society, I suppose, but it is in a way. It's the grumpy old greenkeeper coming out of me here, I suppose. You come to work, you work hard, and you get paid for it, and, you do your job. Most people now basically, the work-life balance is a huge thing we talk about, and I think it's very important. But I grew up where you just came to work, you worked really hard, you worked long hours, sometimes you didn't get paid for the extra work you did. You just sucked it up, and now not so much that they're entitled, but that's the feeling I get sometimes with some of the people, the younger generation, and it's just and I suppose people before, when my parents used to talk about my generation, they were lazy, they were slack, things like that. But I think I'm a great believer in, if you do the right thing for long enough, you'll get noticed. I think a lot of people now just want to do one or two things and be noticed. I think
instant gratification.
And that's social media for you, I suppose, to a degree.
Yeah, it extrapolates that out, highlights it, and pushes only those things really in front of your eyes. Yeah,
so but I'm old school. My 2IC's old school. Mark, my irrigation tech, he's old school as well. So we have the same philosophies, and it's hard because I don't need to be very critical of my new. When I do get new staff, I don't need to be the mean big boss. My senior staff take care of, and they weed out the slackness in them.
Yep.
I don't have to be the mean, ugly, big boss, I suppose. They do it for me, and it's a good thing, because that's a good thing about my staff. They know what's required. They know the standard we work by, and so they take care of a lot of that for me.
And that's the group will often weed out the ones that aren't really pulling their weight anyway.
Yeah,
and that's
I say to your staff, it's not me you've got to please; it's my senior staff.
And if you work well, and look, I've found that. And we've all gone through them. We've had the staff come in and they're fleeting, and they hope that everyone else is going to do the work for them, and that they'll just be dragged along to a good place. It doesn't work that way. You do have to put the effort in. But if you do, like you said, you get noticed. And I think our industry has a lot to offer. You've talked about a lot of the things that our industry has to offer that are intrinsic parts of it, but also I think there's a great camaraderie in our industry locally, but also in a broader sense. And I think there's a lot that you get a lot out of our careers, and sometimes absolutely. It might take a few years to get that and see that, but I think once you're in it and you start to look around, and after doing a little bit of your time, there is something that you just don't want to walk away from in the end.
No,
like
that's
me.
Right. Yeah, it's a very satisfying role. That's the beauty of it, and you're working outside. It's nice. And summers can be brutal and winters can be just as harsh.
Yeah, in a different way.
Yeah.
Mate, let's take a little bit of a step away from all the philosophy behind the greenkeeping career. And a lot of mate, thank you so much for sharing your career path as well, like I think I said before. Right. Let's talk a little bit about the Western Australian Golf Club. I don't know much about it at all, and you've already given us a little bit of an insight, mate, but I want to learn more, and I want our listeners to learn more about it. I took a trip to Perth, and I didn't have enough time to visit every great golf course there, so I got to see only a couple. And but I want to learn more about the Western Australian Golf Club. So, one, can you tell us whereabouts it is relative to Perth City?
We're about 6 kilometres from the city. We're sandwiched. We're about a kilometre from Mount Lawley Golf Course and about 4 kilometres from Karrinyup Golf Course. So we're sandwiched basically in the same city City Stirling, the council area.
Yep, that's the north side. Is that right? The north side.
We're in the good part, north of the river. So we were founded in 1928. So we're coming up to our 100th anniversary in 28.
Wow.
2028. So we're looking forward to that. The golf course itself we're a 45 hectare site, and so I have 31 hectares or 31.5 hectares of closely mown turf or irrigated turf.
Wow.
It's a unique site because we've got the elevation. We have a lot of elevation on the golf course. So from the bottom of the golf to the top of the golf course is 52 metres in elevation.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Our 12th tee is perched up on the top of the golf course. So from the 12th tee, you've got unrestricted views of the city, the Darling Scarp, and everything like that. So,
wow, that's magnificent.
On Australia Day, when they have the fireworks in the city, we've got a gate up there. We open up the golf course to the community and probably get about 1,500 people up there watching the skywork.
No way, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, we do that for the community, and they get a kick out of it and they enjoy it. So it's a hilly site. Again, one of the quirks about the golf course, most of the holes run east-west. Okay. So during the summer months, it's nice, but during the winter months, we're shaded. We have a lot of trees on the golf course, and shade management here is a huge issue. And obviously, removing of trees is a very sensitive topic.
Sure.
So we do that, and we do it all in-house. Everything we do on the golf course is done in-house. We have all our own renovation gear. My 2IC's got a cherry picker's license. I went and had my cherry picker license, but I've lost the nerve, so I got rid of it. We've got our own cherry picker. We do all our own tree work and tree maintenance and renovation. We try to do as much construction in-house. We've recently completed 2 big fairway projects where we moved about 5,000 cubic metres of sand, and we had to get contractors in for that, but working closely with them. We try to do as much as we can with the team we have.
Wow. That's incredible.
We're basically, it's a busy golf course. We do about 72 to 75,000 rounds a year. I don't get too many course closures, except, probably get about 5 days of the year where the course is closed either for spraying or coring of greens. And so, we close on a Monday to core greens and they're back playing on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, right.
So so getting renovations and getting what I want to get done and what I have to get done are two different things, I suppose.
Yeah, wow, that's impressive. I like the thing I remember about Perth is because I went further up north early one morning. I went to Lake Karrinyup and I went to Joondalup and just flying into Perth though, I always thought Perth was flat. I really did. I always thought Perth was flat. I had no idea. So flying in, I was like, what the hell? Like, I just assumed you got Melbourne's rather flat, Adelaide's like a tack. And, and when we got, I just thought the further west you go, the flatter it gets, right? It's going to be laser leveled. And we were flying in. You mentioned the Darling Scarp, I think, is at the east side over the city. So when we come in from the northeast and in the landing, and I was like, this looks astonishing. And then once you drove in out of Perth to the north, you go away from the river, and it's quite undulating, and there's lots of movement in the ground, and I thought this is really cool. So I'm loving learning about the landscape of Perth because I was only there for a short period, relatively, and get to see a lot. So that's a really cool feature that you got 52 meters difference between top and bottom.
Yeah, and when I told you, I mean that's the good thing about Perth too. It's a sand belt basically.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
The coastal plain is all sand. It's not until you get into the hills that you start getting into the bit of clay and soil. But we have two different sand dunes, the board of the golf course.
Okay.
So the top of the golf course is one system and the bottom of the golf course is another. So in terms of the quality of sand, it's pretty good sand.
Wow.
The downside of Perth sand is it's very anti-wetting.
Hydrophobic is what, yeah.
We go through a lot of wetting agent to keep things alive over here, and obviously with the heat and the breezes we get drying out and evaporation rates are quite high.
Yeah. Yep. It's something that I did learn as much as I could in a short period was that everything is sand, which astonished me because we now on the East Coast, and it's a buzzword, is sand dunes and sandscapes and all this sort of stuff for building golf courses on. You get to Perth and everyone says you just keep digging. It's just sand.
Yeah.
But it's very hydrophobic. And I was like, this is really interesting and unique. I was fascinated by it. I think it's a great touch, and great to hear about a little bit about the golf course. Can you tell us so there's a little bit about the landforms and the features of the course, and do the different sand dune types do much for maintaining differences, or is it just the colour? Or
well, the top half of our golf course is Quindle Up Dunes, and it's yellow. It's basically like bricky sand, so it's beautiful sand to construct out of.
Right.
Free training. The bottom of the golf course is the Bassendean Dune system, which is more of a whiter sand, and when you get deep, you get in a coffee rock. But it's a gutless sand. It looks beautiful and white, but it's gutless. It doesn't compact. It's very round particle size.
Okay.
But we found out the hard way that it's not very good for bunkers.
Okay. Yeah, right. It just would keep collapsing and not really.
Yeah, and then it's very soft. But in terms of drainage, we don't close very often. We probably have 3 or 4 course closures a year where it pours with rain and we get puddling, it floods, and within 5 minutes it's drained.
It's gone. Yeah.
It's golfers. They don't get, we don't get many course closures, so it's golf 365 days of the year in Perth.
Wow, that's unreal. Can you tell us a little bit about, mate, please, the grass types you have on the golf course? What adorns the surfaces that we play on if we're going to get a game?
We're Kaikui fairways.
Okay.
Santarana T-tops, so we've got basically 20 or 28 hectares of Kai, just on 1.2 hectares of T surfaces, which is Santarana Cooch. And my greens now are Pure Distinction, so they used to be Pencross.
Oh.
So we went through that dirty word power, came up back in 2005. Because back in 2000 and 2002 we had a lot of holes closed in the new irrigation system and the construction of all those golf holes. The club just said, let's hold on any construction for a while. So we basically put our greens program in the background.
Right.
And it sort of reared its head again. And coincidentally, that's when I had trouble with the captain and the vice captain, where power was an issue in the greens. They were still good surfaces, but we had issues at certain times of the year. So we can engage John Nayland to give us a report. And he suggested a few grass types, so I went away and investigated different grass types. We grew some grass down at the shed. We grew 200 square metres of event grass and trialled it. And we came back with Pure Distinction to be the grass that we want.
Wow.
So in the course of 5 years or 4 years, we rebuilt all our greens in-house. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, it was just take the turf off the top, dig out 150 mil of the sand, bring in new sand and reshape the greens. The difficulty was with Graham Marsh greens, we had to put them back exactly the same. So that was they were challenging to do.
Okay.
Keep Graham happy. And I say that with a tongue-in-cheek. Graham and I get on really well. He's a great bloke to work with.
Yep.
But putting the greens that he'd constructed back exactly the same, because he came out and he goes, that looks different. And I said, how the hell do you pick that?
That's what they do.
Yeah, so we chose Pure Distinction, and I love it. It's a great grass. It gets a bad rap for being thatchy, but we do a lot of grooming, a lot of dusting. Our nutritional program has evolved over those years. But it was challenging for the staff because we had greens that were 20 years, we had some greens that were 65 years old.
Yeah,
back
right.
then. And so all of a sudden we had new greens. And then as the program evolved, we had greens that were a year old, 2 years old.
Yep.
So we had probably 3 or 4 different fertiliser programs and maintenance programs. But now we're sort of on track. They've all bedded in beautifully. The members love it. I think it's a great surface. And, it's probably proving me right now that, Victoria put it in. Kingswood Peninsula have got it. And a lot of, I think Huntingdale are putting it in.
Yeah, Royal Sydney, Killara over here in Sydney have got it. I mean, and it's proving to be a very popular grass. I'm just curious to know the timing. I like to learn this one. So when did you put them in, mate, if you don't mind me asking?
The first lot of greens we put in was in 2016. So the club...
2016?
Yep.
So you would be the first person in the country to have done it?
The Pure Distinction, one of the Gosnells golf course up in the hills had 2 or 3 Pure Distinction greens.
Wow.
And one of the reasons I chose it, I did all the research and looked at all the trial data and everything, and ticked all my boxes there. Royal Canberra had it in.
Okay, so I was going to say Royal Canberra, I know, had done it very early as well, but I didn't realise it was quite that early. But there you go. And
I delved into I went back, dug into some of the weather patterns, and Canberra basically is very hot and humid. So I thought, well, it's going to stand up to that kind of weather. So I grew 200 square metres of it down in my shed.
Yep.
And we subjected this grass to some torture for about a year and a half. We mowed it as low as 1.2 mil.
Wow.
Yeah, I can handle low mowing. We sometimes, when we're spraying greens with certain chemicals, we used it as our rinseate. When we had to rinse out the spray tanks, we used that. And we put it through its trials. We turned the water off on it for a few days every now and then and see what it came up like.
Wow.
So I committed to it. And when we first built, the first year we built greens, we built 3 greens, and we sodded 2 greens and we seeded 1 green.
Yep.
We soon found out that we could sod a green and have it back in play within 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Nursery of 1,500 square metres. So we built another nursery. So we had a nursery of 3,000 square metres. So the next couple of years was basically 4 to 5 greens every year.
Oh, so you were growing it on site at your golf course and then just turfing it with that? You weren't getting it grown elsewhere?
No, we did it all everything in-house.
Wow.
So I think out of the 20 greens we ended up seeding 3 greens and we sodded the rest. I think it was 2018, or I think it was. We basically, in a 20-day working day turnaround, we resurfaced 5 greens.
What?
Ripped the surfaces out, brought the sand in, reshaped it, sodded the green. So we got to the stage, I was planning it, but my staff led this. They said, let's just get them out of the way. So once we were halfway through sodding 1 green, 3 or 4 guys would go off the sodding crew and then start stripping another green.
Wow. That's
impressive. So by the time we were laying the 1 green, we were ready to start bringing sand in on another green and shaping. So we just leapfrogged away. And the quicker we got them down, the quicker we got them back in play for the members.
That's sensational. What an effort.
Yeah, so I'd like to have kept them out of play for a little longer in the perfect world, but, they wanted it. And look, we managed. We learned very quickly how to bring them into play and nurse them through the first 10 months of their life, I suppose. But they've all settled down in now and bedded in, and I think it's great grass. I love it.
No, that's. I had a great conversation with Glenn Stewart, Director of Courses at Peninsula Kingswood, and you talked about PK, and he took me for a drive around the golf course after we recorded, and we were just chatting about Pure Distinction and how he finds he gets the most out of it there at PK. Yeah. And I got to tell you, look, if your greens made and any of the Pure Distinction greens around the country are as good as PK's, and I've been fortunate to see Royal Canberra, I've been fortunate to see PK. It is just astonishing. I think it really I'd heard some comments about pure distinction, and like you said, it can get very thatchy and that sort of stuff. But I've also spoken to a number of other turf managers now that have held it for the longest on site, and it's really learning what works. That you got to be a little bit different to what you've ever been, I think, with other grass types on greens. So,
it's how you treat it. It's just a different management practice that we've learned.
Yeah.
And I think we've managed to keep my oldest green now. It's coming up to what are they now? Nearly 8 years old, and when we've done thatch testing, and we're still under 4% thatch. So we've managed to keep a fairly solid sand base.
Yeah. Mate, that's incredible. That's awesome to hear that you guys have. Like I said, mate, I have no idea what your golf course is like. So this is you're putting big ticks on the planet of where you sit and what the golf course is for people to experience. So obviously, you mentioned the membership, love it. It's a great lot of work done. So obviously, everyone's now starting to enjoy what you've got there.
They do. And we're going through the process now of revisiting bunkers, and we've got 72 bunkers. We've got about 1.2 hectares of sand on the golf course in our bunkers. When I first took over the golf course, we had one fairway bunker.
What?
We've got
really?
We've got 25 now.
Okay. Is that all thanks to Graham Marsh?
No, a lot of it was led by when we had a chairman of Greens, and he led that we wanted more bunkers. But when we did the redevelopment back in 2002 with the golf holes and the irrigation system, we put fairway bunk, and then Graham took over, and basically we looked at strategic bunkering and things like that. We've sort of gone full circle now, and we're sort of looking at the maintenance costs of those bunkers.
Yep.
So we're either making them smaller or looking to make them smaller. Or reducing bunkers. I'm old school now, where I think bunkers. I like having a lot of bunkers. Maintenance wise, I don't.
Yeah, sure.
But the aesthetics of the golf course, they frame the golf holes up, and you've only got to look at any classical golf course that sits, highly within the top 100, but are very highly regarded. One of the things they have, and the sandbelt includes it, they have a lot of bunkers.
They have a lot of sand, whether we like it or not.
They have a lot of sand, and some. So bunkers frame golf holes up, and I've been fortunate to visit golf courses throughout the world.
Yep.
And you get to see some spectacular bunker complexes. I was lucky enough to volunteer and work at Chambers Bay for the US Open. And
oh wow!
Which was incidentally designed by Robert Trent Jones Jr., who built Joondalup up here.
Ah, yes.
So spectacular piece of land. It was just an incredible piece of how he's carved a golf course out of an old sand pit.
Yeah.
But it was a magnificent golf course, and it wasn't until I saw it the year after, when I was working there, it didn't look as not dead, but didn't look as dry as it did on TV. It looked a lot worse on TV.
Yeah, right. It brings out the contrast a lot more on television cameras, I think.
Yeah, and that so. But I've been lucky enough to work 3 US Opens now, so it's a great experiences, and I encourage anyone that is either thinking about it to do it. It's you just got to know how to do it.
That's impressive. Which ones have you done? Let's jump around.
I did Chambers Bay, Erin Hills in 2017, and I did Pebble Beach in 2019.
What was Erin Hills like?
It's a plain golf course. It's on prairie land, so it's a grassland. A lot of fescue roughs and things like that. Massive fairways, very long. Some of the carries off the back tees were like 250 metres to get to the fairway for the pros. So they were getting carted back from the green complex to the tee complex to hit their tee shots.
Fair income.
It was great, nice golf course, but Chambers Bay. It's a toss up between Chambers Bay and Pebble Beach, but Chambers Bay was a great golf course. But it was just how I got to do it was pure luck. I was, I think I was on Twitter at the time, and I put a tweet out saying, "Love to work a US Open. Please help. #help."
Yeah, right.
And I think within 10 minutes, the superintendent at the time, Josh Lewis, sent me a private message, and he said, "Here's my email address. Send me your details, and we'll get you in."
Get out of town.
So it was just pure luck.
That's fantastic.
So it cost me a small fortune to do it.
Sure.
The club's helped me out with previous ones now, with some airfares and things like that. They've been supportive of it. But the first one probably cost me $10,000 to go to Chambers Bay.
Wow. Hey.
By the time airfares up to Seattle, find accommodation for a few days prior, did a little bit of tourism, and then work the event.
That's
But
sensational.
you really do get to meet very like-minded individuals, and a lot of them are groundsmen, superintendents, some of them are trade, but it's a great experience.
That's unreal. And what was it like to walk the grounds of Pebble Beach? I think that'd be quite fascinating to be on a historic place like that.
Yeah, it was. My wife and I, in holidays, had walked a couple of holes, probably about 10 or 15 years prior to that.
Right.
But to get to work the golf course was spectacular. And, incidentally, I rake bunkers. I hand rake bunkers when we did USO Pebble Beach, and I've had a great time. There was a crew of about 10 of us that were responsible for the fairway bunkers on the back nine.
Right.
And we had a great time. And the good thing about it is I love my photography. So it afforded me, I could take my camera with me.
Yep.
So while you're working, you're taking photos of the golf holes.
Yeah, wow.
So you normally finish work and before breakfast, you jump in, you get in, whilst you're inside the ropes. If you stayed inside the ropes, no one questioned what you were doing.
Yep.
So you got to walk places sometimes that no one else could walk to, and that. So you get to walk the golf course and see a lot. You got to watch a lot of golf and that. But Pebble Beach is a beautiful property. It's just, and I suppose the Monterey Peninsula is like the Sandbelt. We organised to go in Cypress Point, walk Cypress Point.
Spyglass, I would just imagine.
Spyglass, Monterey Peninsula, some beautiful golf courses down that part of the world.
And a lot of the ones that we don't even know their names being outsiders, we just know of the Cypress Points and Pebbles of the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably about 15 golf courses down there.
That's unreal.
And so it was good.
Fantastic, mate. What a great thing to have experienced and been part of. Do you think you'll do more? It's a lot of travel.
I want to do one more, yeah. Justin Bradbury and I, and Trevor Strawn's son, incidentally, was part of the Pebble Beach experience.
Yep.
Dennis, another superintendent. And so we basically played a little bit of golf, played the Cow Club. But we've been talking about doing another one, yeah, definitely. Picking the right ones is what we want to do.
Yeah, fair enough. Sounds interesting, mate, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, that was a sidetrack away from the WA Golf Club, but worth hearing, mate. Thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot to maintain a golf course, as we know, and you've just talked about it for tournaments. Tell us a little bit about your crew for the WA Golf Club. What have you got there? You mentioned 10 staff. Tell us a little bit about what it takes.
10 of us. There's 10 of us all together, full-time mechanic. So this time of year, Mark Fay, my third in charge, is in charge of the retic, and with an ageing irrigation system, he's very valuable to me.
And busy, no doubt.
Yeah, we're constantly getting main breaks or broken sprinklers and things like that. So it's full time on the retic tools. So and that, but most days we have competitions. Monday's the only day we don't have a comp. So Tuesday, Thursday's the lady days, and we get them going. And then the afternoon we have members come out, social golf. Fridays are really busy here. We have a 1T start, so that's the only advantage I have. So we can dedicate all. And see, noise is a big issue around the golf course. I'm bordered by about 130 houses.
Right.
So there's a lot of areas to the no-go zones.
Okay.
So trying to get balance, especially when you're trying to get spraying done and things like that, it's challenging to get everything done. But the crew of 10, every day we rake bunkers every day, much to the disgust of members still complain about them as they do. In summer, I'd like 12 staff would be lovely, but obviously budget restraints don't see that happening. But most days the boys know what's required and we get out and get it done.
Wow. Very good, mate. Great to hear. And I've seen some of the photos that not only yourself, but the club posts from time to time about the golf course. And the place looks sensational. When I come back to Perth, and I say when because there's a lot of places I've got to go to now when I come back.
Yeah. Our clubhouse overlooks the lake in the first and ninth hole. So, and we've got a beautiful big balcony that they built a couple of years back now. It's probably the main feature. We've got one. One of the things I did when I was in the US at a conference was you see those big tower clocks that you see in the US golf courses.
Yes. Yep.
So I managed to convince the club to purchase one of them and it's a nice feature now. So it gets plastered in a lot of posts. But the clubhouse views over the golf course. You can, from our clubhouse balcony, you can see 4 golf holes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can, 2 of them are par 3s. So it's probably the most unique part of the golf course is the clubhouse.
Okay.
It's a old Chewett style golf course, clubhouse design.
Yep.
Very characteristic of the 1920s, 1930 builds. It's not very, it doesn't have a modern feel about it, but it's got a real old world charm about it.
Yeah, nice.
So it's probably the main feature of the golf course.
Yeah, okay, and that's where you get the nice views, like you said. Is there any other parts of the golf course that you like as well, or the golfers enjoy particularly?
The 12th tee, obviously, with the views over the city and the Darling Scarp's always nice.
Oh, yep, you mentioned that before.
Looking down on that 12th hole. My favourite part of the golf course is the 7th tee. It's sort of in the middle of the golf course, but it's an elevated tee. I find that's my quiet time when I need to reflect on a couple of things. Or get away from someone.
Yeah, exclude yourself from everything and just get in a quiet space.
Yeah, I always say to my manager, he gets hemmed in, is locked in at the clubhouse in his office, but I get to drive away from arguments sometimes.
That's it, quite literally. Mate, we touched on before that so much of Perth, nearly all of Perth, is sand-based, and I wonder, with so many good golf courses around, in your opinion, why don't we as a golf industry talk about Perth golf as much as the East Coast destinations, do you think? Is it just distance? And I've kind of, since my visit earlier this year, and I've had people say to me, "Oh, look, Perth's pretty mundane. It's pretty so-so. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing outstanding about it." I literally loved it.
You like Perth to a good country town.
I do that with Adelaide.
Yeah.
As well.
I thought about this question because distance does have a factor to play to it, I think. We're on sand. Yeah, I can't see why but our population's probably not big enough. We've got a lot of golf courses for our population.
Yeah, okay.
And I think there's no market to basically come in and build a new golf course.
You did have for a while, though, because you got the Vines and you got Joondalup. So what was that, the 90s? That was obviously like the Gold Coast. It was outside 90s, money.
Yeah, and so you got Kennedy Bay.
Yes.
You got Araluen.
And the Cut.
And that. So, and then you've got the Vines and then Joondalup.
Was it Meadow Springs?
Meadow Springs is another one. Yeah, I remember playing there as a young fella a fair bit, and that was a great golf course.
Yep.
It still is. It's probably a population that stops us from. There's no market to, if you want a game of golf in Perth, you can find a game of golf. It's simple as that.
Yeah, okay.
There's mates getting on and it's hard to get on the private golf courses, obviously. Sure. But as visitors, we all know mates. I've got friends of other golf courses.
Yep.
But even the public golf courses, like Wembley's, that's a juggernaut of a golf course.
Yeah, totally.
In terms of what that generates, a 36-hole facility. But there's a lot of public golf courses. So to get on a golf course, it's not like there's the demand for it. And I suppose that's the biggest thing. And then distance. Yeah. We should be building golf courses. Some of our coastal dunes, they lend themselves to some fantastic golf course and the landscapes.
Do you have much outside influence to that region from like the Asian parts? Because you're a lot closer over that side.
It's a very popular destination. So we're reciprocal with a few Singaporean clubs.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go.
And we get very frequently visited by them.
Okay.
In fact, here in particular, they visit us more than we visit them.
Right, there you go.
And that, so they do. And like it's a 5-hour flight from Sydney to Perth. It's a 5-hour flight from Singapore to Perth.
Oh, okay. So you are, it's a completely different ballgame, really.
So, it's a 3-hour drive down to Busselton and Margaret River. Well, it's a 3-hour flight to Bali.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of people from WA or from Perth that visit Bali and for us over here on the East Coast, it's often the Fijian Islands or those sorts of things. So it's what you're nearby. And I think, like you said, a 5-hour flight across the country, some people view that differently than, obviously, than they would rather fly to New Zealand, which is, I think, 3.5 hours. It's easier to do that than it is to go to Perth from the East Coast, for example.
As a golf destination for a holiday for the Southeast Asians, it's 5 hours. They get to come down here. They get to play some fantastic, and for them, it's very, very affordable. They're happy to pay the full whack of green fees in some cases. So they'll come as a golf destination. And in summer, you don't have to worry about the weather. It's not like going to, or if you're in Brisbane recently, you'd be washed out.
Yeah.
once we get to October, that's it. The weather dictates that it's just beautiful golf weather. The only downside is it gets bloody hot.
A little bit too hot as well,
Yeah.
but without the rain.
They all use scarves. So
yeah,
soft.
okay. It's interesting. I'm puzzled. I'm often puzzled by it because I'm obviously a great fan of all things Australian and Australian golf courses, and it's easy to travel between the cities on the East Coast. But going to Perth, it's different travelling with 2 kids under 4 as well. But when you go to Perth, my brother did it not long ago, and he went over to Perth for a couple of days and played a couple of courses, and he come back, and I was like, well, maybe I think we often think it's more difficult than it is, and I think the golf courses aren't talked up enough, or the golf destination of Perth isn't talked up enough. I was blown away by anywhere that I saw that I got a chance to see. Even Mossman, that I got a 9-hole golf course there to have a look at. I mean, hanging over the top of the river. Yeah,
and I think that's the problem. I mean, no one knew about the WA Golf Club for years. When we first had the very, very first WA Open back, I think it was in early 2004 or 5. All the pros said we didn't even know it existed.
It's got the name of the state.
It was basically, the Lake Carrinups, the Cottesloes, and the Mount Lawley. That was it. Yep. And then, for a lesser extent, the Vines.
Yeah.
Once the Vines came on, you had the Heineken Classic and things like that, and the Super Sixes and tournaments.
Yep.
But we were undiscovered for a great part of that time.
And now you're out there.
For the first time visitors go, we didn't even know this place existed.
100%, mate. And that's why I was keen, again, to get you on to learn about, and so that the audience could hear about the Western Australian Golf Club, because it looks sensational. And your career, you don't spend that long working at a golf course if it's just a bit so-so, and you have a great passion for it. It's driving the team, and there's a lot in there to expose to the golf industry and golfers as much as the greenkeeping industry about what you do and how you go about it. So I think it's, I wanted to hear about it as much as anyone else may not have heard of it. So that I found really interesting and wanted to learn more about it. You mentioned you hold the WA Open every 5 years, is that right?
That's correct.
What's it like preparing the golf course? Does it give a team a buzz? I'm sure it does. Getting it tricked up a little bit more for the pros, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I get in trouble from PGA a few times because Andrew Langford-Jones is a fantastic person, and he did the first couple of WA Opens. We clashed, I think, for the first WA Open because he turned up on the day and said, "You're not allowed to use a roller." He forbid me from using my roller, and he said, "I don't want the greens too quick."
Okay.
In terms of tricking it up, we let the semi-rough up here just grow. We fertilised the semi-rough.
Okay.
Because we're a short golf course, these pros, all the par fives are accessible.
Yep.
Very easily accessible for them. So we needed to trick the greens up a little bit and get a bit of speed in them. So unbeknownst to Robert, he'd go home and Langers would go home in the afternoon, and I'd roll greens in the afternoon. So what he didn't know didn't hurt him. But we got on really well in the previous tournaments. But we basically the weather dictates obviously what we can do. But when the weather, a couple of years when we've had good weather, we start preparations on the greens. Probably we don't do a lot. That's the beauty, and I think that's the beauty of my longevity here. Maintaining the golf course day in, day out to a standard is critical, and not letting it lapse. We all aim for 100%, having a golf course maintained within an inch of its life, I suppose, getting it to 100%. But we all know that's unobtainable. And I always say, whatever you lift the bar on a golf course or any facility for that matter, that becomes the new standard. So you make a rod for your own back. And I'm not saying I'm slack by not trying to get it to 100%. We aim to get it to 100%. But day in, day out throughout the year, we try to aim for a maintenance standard of around 85%. So it doesn't take a lot of extra work from my team to get it to 95%.
Yep.
Get it in playing, get it up to where we want it. But in saying that, we don't let the standards drop below, if you put a figure on it, 70%.
Yep.
So we keep the standards high. Hitting the greens, obviously, but we do. We dry the greens out a little more. We put a bit more growth regulation, and we do a bit more cutting, a bit more rolling. We stripe the fairways up, which, takes the boys enjoy doing, and there's a fair bit of banter. We have 3 fairway mowers here, and they argue about who's got the best stripes and the best lasers.
Bit of competition.
So, amongst the three of them, they delegate who's got what fairways, and no one touches another person's fairways.
Yeah, okay.
It's taboo. So, we get the golf course up, probably about 2 or 3 weeks up prior to that, and then we just sit on it and just keep it ticking along. And then obviously, for the week of the tournament, we start really early and get it up. But the boys enjoy it. It's good fun. We have breakfast every morning. The club helps us out with some food and things like that. But the guys get a kick out of it, I think. And my membership are very proud of the club, and that's probably the most pleasing thing for me. They puff their chests out and they say, I'm a member of the WA Golf Club, things like that.
Sure.
They're very proud of the club, and that's what I get a kick out of.
Yep.
But it's good fun, and it's a good week.
No, that's good, and I think that those sorts of things help. That it gives the team something to look forward to, and then enjoy the challenge of doing so and seeing the fruits of their labour when you're testing the best, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's part of. I think that's part of hosting as well. It's good. It's great, promotion for the club too, to see how people, get around the golf course and experience it, and then their thoughts afterwards. So there's a lot of positives from it. But it's great to hear that you're on the map and you're hosting that event. So that's sensational, mate. I often wonder. And I think I might have mentioned this to you prior, but I gone are the days, I suppose, of the Johnny Walker Classic that was held in Perth. Do you think it's
sad that we don't get anything?
Or that's where I'm sort of getting to. Do you think it's time that maybe we should try and see whether WA should hold a big tournament again? I mean, I'm a big believer in, and I know people don't agree with me, but that's okay. Everyone's allowed their own opinion. But I'm a believer that the Australian Open should travel to all the states of the country, and that represents Australia as a country, as a piece of ground. We have such a diverse range of golf courses, whether you're playing Royal Hobart or you're playing, Royal Queensland, or if you're down at Kingston Heath or Royal Melbourne, and Royal Adelaide's, Glenelg's, I could throw them all. Most people would say Glenelg, probably shouldn't be in that mix, but I think it's an incredible golf facility. And
I played there recently, and it was a magic facility. What they're doing down there,
absolutely mind-boggling how good that's become. So I believe that it should travel around. I don't think it should be locked up by state government money or whatever you want to call it, and that's how it functions to get the funding. And I get that, but we need to, I think, find a way to move it around. And I think to have it. That, for example, travelling, hosted in different states and different golf courses, we have others as well. And, should we, what would it mean, do you think, to Perth to have a big event, a big tournament again?
Well, I know when we had the Super Sixes at Karrinyup and then the Heineken Classics and the Johnny Walkers at the Vines, you always look forward to it because you got to see, high quality golf and see how they play. I mean, hosting now, I think it's probably only Karrinyup that can host an event like that because they've got the infrastructure and let's face it, it's the length of the golf course that dictates these things now.
For sure.
But I think there's that dirty word again, politics, isn't it? I mean, it's government money.
Yeah.
And I know Mike Clayton's, very adamant about echoing your thoughts that it's an Australian Open, it should travel.
Oh, there you go. I haven't heard that.
Every year, but in its history now, it should turn up to WA once.
Yeah,
be hosted by, and obviously Lake Karrinyup are the probably the ones that get.
Yeah, the front runners to have it.
Yeah, well, they're probably the only ones that can at the moment. But it seems to be that the state government money that funds it, and it stays over there. Another thing probably is TV timing, I suppose, because of the 3-hour time difference. But in saying that, get quality TV time in. Prime TV time.
Hey, there's enough channels. There's enough channels and spare channels and second channels and third channels that we can have it. It's not complicated, and I think that's an excuse personally from the networks and the people trying to set it all up. They do it on other sports, so I don't. I've heard that before, and I it's definitely the funding model that makes it hard. But I'd love to see something back in Perth that got some of the play. Look, I think Liv would be fantastic if it was able to go to Perth. I mean, I know.
Karrinyup were keen to try and get a Liv event. I know that. Fraser was telling me that. The superintendent, but they obviously didn't win that. So whether there might be something in the future, but it'd be nice to see something back in Perth. It's sort of like we are, pardon me, the forgotten town.
Yeah.
I know what Tasmania feel like now because they sort of got neglected and we get neglected.
Do you think, I mean, Tassie's becoming more on the map with every Cape Wickham that gets built, every Ocean Dunes, every Barnbugle, every 7 Mile. And there's a bit of a run since those golf courses started being built down there, since the early 2000s with Barnbugle Dunes. And subsequently, the more that are coming, Arm End and so on that are planned to continue. Does Perth need, like I go back to that, building of golf courses, does it need something to put that region on the map again? Does it need a Joondalup? Does it need something else?
And I think it'd take, you're probably right, it'd take a special kind of golf course like a 7
mile in Perth.
Cape Wickham, to get it on the map, and then people might think, well, this might be a great golf destination, and it is. It's still a great golf destination because you can play.
Yeah.
The weather dictates it. And not only the weather, you've got other activities. I mean, some of our beaches are some of the best in the world. You've got the Margaret River wine region.
Yeah.
But to come over here, play golf, but do other things as well.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be a reason.
It might take that extra golf course, but at the moment now, there's no demand for the new golf courses.
Yeah.
And land. So over here, to buy a house over here is nearly impossible. So the land spread, so most of the coastal dunes area now are being chewed up with land development.
Right, okay.
And that's so the state government's obviously not allocating or no big venture. And maybe it takes someone like a Twiggy Forest, to get it going.
Yeah, and you got, I suppose, Kennedy Bay's being rebirthed in a sense, jigged around, and you got some incredible. I just studied Google Earth, right? So you got some amazing dunes up north, further north than the Joondalup region. Lancelin, yes, that's right, and that sort of stuff. But I don't know if it's too far. So look, I know we're spitballing, but I
Too far is not that. It's 40-minute drive.
Well, so
you're in Lancelin.
Look at Cape Wickham and look at Barnbugle. They're not in the city, so.
No, that's right. So that's not really an excuse, I suppose.
You're quite right. People will travel. If you build it, they will come. And I think that's probably never been better. That's probably never worked better than in a modern world. So, interesting.
It might take, but it'd be nice to see some big tournaments over here again. I think we've sort of been devoid of it for quite a few years now.
Yeah, with a lot of things. I'm a big car buff, so I remember the World Rally Championship that would come over that way in Perth, and I just used to absolutely stick to the television when that was on because it was like the best round of the year, and because the drivers loved it, and it was in a beautiful landscape, but you don't have that either. That came over the East Coast, and then it just disappeared.
Our isolation works against us, but it works for us too, I suppose. During COVID, it worked for us.
yeah, exactly right. So,
personally, I loved COVID. I thought it was the greatest time in the world. It's just we were closed for 4 weeks. We were the last private golf course to open up. We were. My manager kept it closed for an extra week, I suppose. And from a maintenance side of thing, when do you ever get a golf course where there's no golfers on it?
That would have been a dream.
You get the odd day here and there, but we had a week. We had a great time. We talked about having fancy dress, coming to work in fancy dress. It was just, and to renovate greens and watch them grow back without pitch marks, and
that's a unique experience. That's I don't often hear people talk about it like that.
Never happened in our lifetime again, Steve.
That's a very interesting thing to watch. What happens to a golf course with no golf that wasn't because it was exclusively private, where you didn't have enough golfers. Yeah, that's a really rare thing to happen, and it's a different level of maintenance, right? You had to do different things because it wasn't for golf.
You weren't preparing it for play. You were actually preparing grass for the agronomy of the grass.
You were caring for the grass and only the grass.
Yeah, we caught the crap out of everything we did. But in saying that, COVID did another thing, didn't it? I mean, it reinvigorated golf across the country.
It did, in a great way.
We went from being... Well, we had not a big waiting list. You could get in as a member if you wanted to pay. You could get in as a member and get playing rights. To get full playing rights here now, it's basically 10 years. It takes you 10 years.
What?
Yeah, that's basically the time frame they put on it now.
Wow.
So golf grew, and all of a sudden timesheets were full with wait lists, and people were arguing that we had older members who've been 60 years that said, "I can't get a game of golf."
Yep.
It grew tenfold. The challenge now for golf clubs and Golf Australia is basically how do they retain those people? And, so far, we've managed to retain our numbers, and like I say, we're still very popular. And I think that's born about through we're popular too because, again, I'll come back to that. We keep the golf course at the 85-90% standard.
Yep.
It's always in reasonably good nick. It doesn't falter too much. Doesn't have too many highs and lows. It's very plateaued in its standards, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to having a great crew of guys and a good manager who sees that. But, yeah, golf, that's the challenge now, I think, to keep the golfers engaged in the golf courses and finding a market.
Yeah, it's a different landscape again, and it's shifted in a different way. I think and I know a few clubs, sadly, in my old neck of the woods, but if you're a club that's struggling now to function and to stay, to keep the doors open in a sense, if you can't do it now, you're probably not going to last. You're doing something wrong, and you won't be around for long, because when times get tough, well, they're not tough now. So if you're struggling now when it's plentiful and you're struggling, you won't last. So it's a very different landscape, and like you said, it offered some unique things to consider and experience at that time. Least of all was the golf side of it, but the boom thereafter was something quite remarkable for everything and everyone involved. And here we are today with, thankfully, with a plentiful golf as a sport. We couldn't have more people playing it. We're still, another story. We're still doing some things wrong, unfortunately, in the golf space. But that's probably another discussion for another podcast. But
that's right. Not all perfect, I suppose.
No, indeed. Well, Idris, on that high of thinking about the future of WA golf and certainly the future of the Western Australian Golf Club, mate, I look forward to following the rest of your career as you continue on with the team that you've got there and with that fantastic golf club in the Western Australian Golf Club, mate. Thank you so much for sharing all those parts of your career and telling us and giving us an inside look into the Western Australian Golf Club. And I hope anyone out there who gets the opportunity, whether it be as a guest to visit or as an interstate traveller or an outside traveller, consider the WA Golf Club, because I think you've got a lot to offer, mate. And mate, it's great to hear a lot about the club. So thank you so much.
No, my pleasure, and it's always been nice talking to you, and I hope everything works out for us.
No, mate.
Hopefully I'll be here for a few more years.
Absolutely, mate. I look forward to following it. Idris Evans, thank you so much for being on the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast.
No worries. Thank you very much.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Idris Evans, Superintendent of the Western Australian Golf Club in Perth, WA. What a sensational conversation that was, and lots of things to talk about and discuss in there. Lots of things I hope you got an insight to, and certainly some interesting topics were had. And I just want to thank Idris as well for bringing out the topic and the mental health challenges, some of the things that he went through. I really appreciate that, Idris, and thank you so much. And hopefully people listening, I want you to understand that from time to time in your careers, and I've had a couple of conversations at the end of last year actually with some young upcoming greenkeepers and young superintendents, that this is life. We're going to bump into challenges. We're going to bump into challenging people from time to time. They're going to test us, and a workplace is going to be challenging. And it's time to talk. It's time to talk about it, and let's not hide it. Let's not put our heads in the sand about it. And I think our industry can do more and more to support people in our industry from difficult times that they'll go through. But also, you've heard through Idris, communication's big. Working within the team, working within the structure and the hierarchy of a golf club, that communication is key. And it's about working together to achieve a common goal, which is to bring out the best in any golf course. So I want everyone to have a think about that. And I don't know of too many people that have had a career that long in any one workplace, let alone one golf course. So congratulations to Idris and all the hard work over such a long and dedicated career. And I look forward, as I said to Idris, to seeing his career continue and to see the Western Australian Golf Club continue. I don't want to see WA get put on the map a little bit more in golf. So that's something I'd like to see as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Idris is just so passionate about where he works in the Western Australian Golf Club and the people that he works for, the club itself, the golf course, the team that he leads. You heard it all there in one. He absolutely, and what a career at the one workplace. That's just a measure of how well-oiled a team is working on course. And it's a testament to Idris and himself as an individual individual and his work ethic and what he brings to the Western Australian Golf Club as well, to continue to bring out that golf course in its best shining light. I really enjoyed that conversation. And you can hear in Idris how appreciative and thankful he is to have such a long and fruitful career at the Western Australian Golf Club. So I think it's really interesting and to get an insight into golf clubs, and that's one of the things that I really love, having conversations about people that work on golf courses and what it takes to maintain them, because we really get to hear the passion behind the presentation and what's involved in bringing the golf courses out for everyone to play and enjoy. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode of John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens. Don't forget to check out deere.com.au and to find out just how John Deere Golf can help you look after your golf course better with the machinery that they have available, that they can assist you to improve how you're maintaining your golf course and your turf surfaces. So don't forget to check out the show notes with all the clickables that are in there, and of course, John Deere Golf at deere.com.au. That's deere.com.au. Their clickables are there as well. So make sure you check out their website and find the nearest reps for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you with it. You hit them clean, we'll keep them green, and I'll catch up with you very soon.